Welcome to Adobe Premiere Made Easy Chapter 7. Premiere distinguishes between different types of effects. Fixed effects, these are effects that every clip has by default, and their parameters can be adjusted in the Effect Controls panel. We covered these intensively in the previous chapter. Standard effects, these are effects that we select and add from the Effects panel. So far we introduced the cross dissolve. Effect plugins, these are additional effects that can be purchased, such as those from FX Factory. Before diving into new material, I want to show you how, using the knowledge from the last chapter, you can quickly and easily create a split screen effect with fixed effects without needing to purchase it. To do this, I select 4 clips and stack them on top of each other. I start with Sabachak Bridge and drag it here on V1. Then Duna Corso, I stack it on top. And then next is Attila Ut 1 on top here. And on the very top, I take the Erzsébet Bridge 1. So now we have these effects stacked on top of each other. And by just using the effects controls, let me select Erzsébet, the clip on top. I go to motion and I move my anchor point to the upper left corner by holding control so it snaps here, and reduce the scale to 50%. Now I select the next clip, the Attila Uta. I do the same. I select motion, then I can grab my anchor point, holding control. I snap it to the right up corner, go to 50%. And let's do Duna Corder in the lower left corner. So motion, I grab my anchor point here, holding control, I snap it there, 50%. And now the Sabachak, heat, motion, grab the anchor point. That's sometimes a little tricky. You have to look for it until your mouse sign change. Now it is. I hold control and drag it here, set it to 50%, and you see how fast and easy we created a split screen. If you like, you can animate it, change the background, or add a border. However, those are details I won't go into now, as I prefer to keep moving forward with our project. We use 2 sections from Cutaway 01. So let's go to our rough cut, 01 rough cut. So here we have our rough cut, and we have these clips, and they were shot handheld. So we need to stabilize them, because when we play it here, you see it's a little jittery. So I select the clip, and here in my effects, I look for stabilization. So I just type STAB, and now it shows me the warp stabilizer. There's various ways I can add this effect to my clip. I can drag it from the effects panel onto my clip in the timeline. And you see now this effect is here in my effect controls. Let me delete it to show you other methods to do it. When the clip is selected, it's enough if I double click and the same happens, or I delete it again. Just to show you a third way, you can drag it from your effects panel into your effect controls panel. And every time we have the same result, so whichever process you prefer. And you see it says analyzing in the background. Now in the effect controls, we have various parameters which we can choose and change. I go to no motion here, and then from subspace warp to position, scale, rotation, And from framing, I choose stabilize only. This effect is very resource intensive and takes a moment to apply. Feel free to experiment with other settings. I create a separate tutorial on this effect later, but diving into all the options now would be beyond the scope of this introductory tutorial. Next, we want to reduce the speed to 50%. So we press Ctrl R and set it to 50%. And now we get an error message. Warp stabilizer and speed can't be used on the same clip. This is annoying, but there is an easy workaround. So I set this back, Control R, I go back to 100%, so I don't see the error message anymore. And what we do now, let me move in, let me zoom in. What I do now is I nest this clip with right click on the mouse and nest, legs. And now I have this nested clip and I can apply the time remapping to this clip. So I go again, Control R, 50%, and I choose optical flow. It's going to give me the best results. Now the clip is longer, of course, and you see this red line. That means it needs to render. So I hit my Enter key on the keyboard, takes a moment. Now the line will be green in a second. Okay. And now we see how smooth this shot is, this shaky, jittery shot from before. And we do the same with this other shot, focus on the cleavage. I hold my Alt key on the keyboard and arrow up to move it up. So first I apply the warp stabilizer. And I say no motion, position scale, and stabilize only. And now I'm gonna nest it. I have my nest on a shortcut, Shift N. So, and I say cleavage. And now I can slow it down, 50%, and optical flow. Okay. And I hit my Enter key on the keyboard to render it. And now we have this smooth zoom out, which we were looking for. Okay, so perfect. With this shot, we want to show the passage of time. So we only need the parts where the straw isn't visible and the coffee isn't moving much. Let me zoom in a little bit here. I jump a little ahead because I always want to have some handle. So I don't want to start with the very beginning, plus 5 frames. And I cut the beginning here with Control K. Now I jump ahead 1 second, plus 1 for second, 0, 0 for frames. I cut again, Control K. I move this part up because that's the part I want. All the rest we're gonna cut off later. Now I play my clip with L until the straw comes in and goes out. I stop with K. Now let's give it 5 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with my arrow keys, Control K, and here plus 1, 0, 0, and Control K. I move here. I can select my clip with the mouse, but it's easier, just hit D on my keyboard. And now I move it up. And with D, you select what is under the playhead. Now Let's play again. L for forward. Now the stroke comes in. Stroke gets out. Stop with K. I give it 5 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Control K to cut it. Plus 1, 0, 0. Cut. D to select. Alt arrow up to shift it up. L to play. Stroke comes in. Stroke gets out. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Control K. Plus 1, 0, 0. Control K to cut. D to select. Alt arrow up. And L to play. Stroke comes in the last time. K to stop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Control K. Plus 1, 0, 0. Control K. So here I have all my D to select, Alt up. Now I have these 5 segments I want to keep, and this, I delete this with Shift Delete. So it already, when I delete with Shift Delete, it's ripple delete. That means all the gaps are automatically closed. Now let's move it a little to the right, so I have room for my little effect. And same thing, I'm gonna nest it. So I moved it down. Now I shift N because I made this shortcut for myself. I'm gonna show you in a later segment about shortcuts, how you do that. So I call this cup. And now we have this 5-second clip where the coffee gets, but you see how it jumps? I don't want to have this jump. I want the smooth transition. And of course, I could use the standard dissolve. Let's do that and we see how that looks. Control D, and let's see how that looks. It's okay, but there's a better effect for that. So I delete this dissolve and I go to my effects panel and I look for the morph effect. So MOR and morph cut is what it's offered already. So if you know what you're looking for, just type it here. And then I put this morph effect between all this cuts, and you see there's a red line on all my cuts because this is also taxing the computer. And we see, okay, it was quick. Now I hit, we see it's analyzing in the background. So it's still not ready with analyzing. That takes a moment. It's really computing intensive. But once it's done, you will see how nice it looks. So now the effect has rendered, but we still have this red line. I hit enter on my keyboard, and when we play it now, you see how the morph effect shows the coffee disappearing, symbolizing time goes by. So we go back here and we have this nested sequence. I have to render it again. And we are done with editing the video for our scene. For both color and sound, larger film and television productions have dedicated departments with specialized staff who work with specialized hardware and software. In smaller projects like ours, the video editor also handles this task, and Premiere offers powerful tools for it. In this chapter, I'll introduce you to the tools for sound, and in the next chapter, we'll delve into color. We've already learned in the first chapters that the camera's audio often doesn't offer sufficient quality, and in professional productions, the sound is recorded separately. We also already synced external sound with our videos, but in this case, we barely need the sound. The footage was shot in Budapest, Hungary's capital, but it's not intended for an Hungarian audience. So in the parts where Hungarian is spoken, we lower the volume and overlay it with music. There are several ways to lower the volume of a clip. In the effect controls panel, just like any other fixed effect. So we have audio, we have volume, we have level here, and now we can change the level, lower it or increase it. And let's listen to this. Now it's very loud, you see, and now we can't even hear it anymore. So you see, we can adjust the level here, and we can reset it. But when you look to the clip here in my timeline, look at this line. The moment I'm lifting the level here, this line goes up. And I can also move it here and look at my what happens in my effect controls. So these are the same effect, the same level settings if I do it here or if I do it here. And then we have even a third way to do it. That's the audio clip mixer. The audio clip mixer is not part of my workspace, so that's why I go to Windows and add the audio clip mixer. And now I have this window here, and let me move it out. Let me drag it into this window so we can see the effects controls and the audio clip mixer and this at once. Because I can do the same thing here. Here I can drag it down, and you see this line goes down, and here it goes down, and I pull it higher, the volume, and here it goes up, and here it goes up. So these are three ways to access the volume for the clip, and they basically do the same. But when you work in the timeline, we can use keyframes the same way like we did with opacity and with retiming. So holding control, my mouse changes, it shows a plus, and I can click here, I can click here, I can click here, for instance here. And if I pull this down, you see the level goes down here, then it goes up, and you see this reflecting here. When I'm positioned here, you see now the level is down where this line is down. So you can go to certain points, make them louder, and we also see these keyframes here. So we have to go to toggle animation, click here, and then this action will delete existing keyframes. Yeah, we don't want them because they make no sense. Now everything is back to normal. You can also adjust the volume in the Essential Sound panel. Let's go here. We have the Essential Sound panel, and you have here clip volume. If I change the clip volume here, nothing has changed in this line and nothing has changed here. But what happened, it added an effect. It added this hard limiter effect. And in this hard limiter, we can go into edit and see the setups, and it decreased the input boost. That's how it made this clip louder. So I can close that, or I can change it here. You see, I change it here. And I get an error message because I'm not supposed to do that here. I delete that hard limiter. I can just delete it. And the moment, look at this tick here. The moment I delete it, this tick is gone. You see? And when I tick it here again, the effect will show up here again. To set it back to normal, I can double click here and it's going to 0%. I can uncheck it here and this effect is gone here. We can also look for this effect in our effects panel, limiter, and then we have the audio transition here, the audio transitions, and I can drag that onto my clip or in the effect controls and then go in the setup and change whatever I want to change. But I delete it again. So this is a different way to change the volume. Since we want to uniformly lower the volume of all the clips, it makes sense not to adjust each clip individually, but to set the volume for the entire audio track. To do this, we select the audio track mixer. I have my audio track mixer here. If your workspace doesn't match mine and the audio track mixers panel isn't part of your workspace, you can add it via Windows and then audio track mixer. Here, window, add the audio track mixer to your workspace. Here we can set the volume for the whole track, and I go here, we have track 1, audio track 1, and I can lower it by -6. I've already done it, -6, and I already lowered, I'm sorry, I was a little bit ahead of you, I was experimenting with that. I already lowered track number 2, -12. So that's where we're gonna put the music. The music will be on top of the dialogue. We want to set the dialogue so low that it's not really understandable, but you can still tell a conversation is happening. However, our cutaway clips have no sound, so we'll extend the audio from scene 5, take 17. And to do that, we hold the Alt key on the keyboard or the Option on Mac before we click on this. So we only select the audio part. If we wouldn't hold Alt or Option, it would select audio and video. So now holding Alt on Windows, now only the audio part is selected and I drag the sound out. And now we have sound everywhere, even though it doesn't match the image, but we don't understand what they are talking anyway. So now we have to bring in the music. So we go to our project panel and go to audio, music. And I don't know if you have downloaded that from the YouTube audio library or any other music you have. Now we bring that to track 2 and we bring it to the beginning. And we see the music is a little longer than our video. So we have two options to match it, either shorten our music or extend our video. Both is pretty easy with this rate stretch tool. We already learned about it. We can get it just by hitting the shortcut R. Now I have the rate stretch tool, or you can look for it here in here in the tools section, rate stretch tool. Okay, now we can shorten the music and it matches perfectly. But one thing you have to be very careful when you change the length of a music or of an audio clip. We have to tell it, I say Control R, and now we get this dialogue. And since it's audio, it doesn't offer an optical flow, but it offers the option maintain audio pitch. Otherwise, you change the pitch of the audio. This is very easily. Let us click that, and I show you what happens if you don't do that. Let's take a dialog clip here. Just copy this holding Alt and then drag it here, makes a copy. And just for fun, I use the rate stretch tool and make it shorter without adjusting the pitch. And now if you play it, they sound like Mickey Mouse. Now if you Control R, maintain audio pitch, even though everything is too fast, the voices sound normal, just crazy fast. I mean, so that's a very efficient way to change the length of the music, or go back to 100%. Instead of making the music shorter, we can move all these clips here to the end. And since we have all our B-roll in one nested scene, I can hit R for my rate stretch tool and drag this clip out, and it would still look good. I just have to re-render it because we have changed the clip speed of all the B-roll shots anyway, so it wouldn't really look that we adjusted here for a few seconds to match the length of the audio, the length of the music. That was a brief introduction to sound. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something. If so, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I also welcome questions and suggestions in the comments. In the next chapter, we'll tackle color correction and color grading. And in the following chapter, we'll cover exporting the finished video in a format suitable for YouTube. I hope you join us again. Bye bye.